Hi, lovelies. I'm Queen Lovely. Welcome back to my channel, Melanated Crowns. Make sure you have your notifications on today because I am recording for YouTube and Patreon. And be sure to hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. It's good for the algorithm, and I always love to hear from you all. And I usually do a good job at responding. And be sure. Um, to sign up for my Patreon if you would like to participate in the conversation today. I'm going to be doing like an astrological interpretation when it comes to that situation that happened over the weekend with T.I., Tiny, and their son King Harris. I also have another video coming that is a request. A lot of you on Patreon have been asking me to talk about dynamics when it comes to being a Black woman and attempting to find community with other Black women. So we're going to talk about that too. Okay. Be sure to um check out my latest videos that I did. I did two videos. I recently did a video about Capricorn and Aquarius. So make sure you check that out. And if you want me to do more signs, you can leave them below. I'm stuck between whether or not I want to do Pisces and Sagittarius next or Scorpio and Aries because I'm doing signs that have the same planetary ruler. So for Aquarius and Capricorn, y'all both are governed by Saturn. Um, for Pisces and Sagittarius, we're governed by Jupiter. For Scorpio and Aries, we're governed by Mars. So y'all could let me know, for those of you that's going to be watching those videos, what zodiac signs you want me to talk about next. And you could also suggest to me with what way do you want me to talk about them, because that video I did was inspired by a tweet. So yeah. Okay, so let's get into this video. Okay. So over the weekend, T.I. and them were at the Falcons game, I want to say, and a conversation came up because this. Okay, so let me start from the beginning that I remember. King has always been a mischievous, child, and he always has appeared to seem like someone who has a problem with authority. As he matured and started to speak out more and talk about how he spent most of his time with his grandmother, for me personally, it started to make sense because I'm like, okay, this is very typical. It don't even have anything to do with both of his parents being celebrities, in my opinion. My observation and hypothesis is that this is just the syndrome of, yeah, you don't want for anything externally and materially, but there's a void inside that. I'm not saying that T.I. and Tiny brought about intentionally. I'm pretty sure that they did the best that they could, but there clearly is some emotional neglect there. And as you can see on the screen, that's what my comment said on Sunday when this happened. I said the last slide, which I have here, needs to be the main headline. He feels emotionally neglected. And the reason why I said that is because on his story, he had put, if I'm a mistake, say that, stop making the world think you F with me when you don't. So I know a lot of people like to say he's a brat and he's spoiled and he's disrespectful. And y'all know what we always say over here: multiple truths can coexist. One doesn't have to be invalid for the other thing to be valid. Additionally, I think, especially within the Black community, because we have so many socioeconomic factors that work against us, we have unintentionally and subconsciously become lazy. And we have this tendency to lean into learned hopelessness and helplessness. Meaning, I'm pretty sure, um let me just go over there to Tiny, because I don't really let's just start with Tiny as a mom, okay? Because the women, we're the ones that carry and bake and let the baby marinate for 9 to 10 months, right? I'm pretty sure her maternal instinct has told her at some point or another, I dropped the ball. I think every single parent will have that internal dialogue at minimum with themselves, whether they allow us, their children, to be in on it or not. And the reason why I say that is because my cousin always used to tell me, it don't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter if you send your children to the best schools. Hell, it don't even matter if you're there to tuck your child in every night. Your child will always find at minimum one thing to quote unquote blame you for. Because a lot of us are socialized to believe you're my mom, you're my dad, you're my guardian, you are an adult, and you should know everything. And if you know everything, that means everything should always be right. But we go out into the real world and we recognize that life is not black and white, and it's very, very nuanced. And there are a lot of gray areas. And that's where the discrepancies of what you should be doing and what you could be doing enter the conversation. Because just because on the outside looking in, you feel like your parents could or should be doing more, it doesn't mean that they have the tools or the wisdom to apply themselves. And this is a tough pill that many of us, especially Black children, have to swallow. Because once again, going back to the earliest of times, if we're going to talk about slavery, we're going to talk about Jim Crow, the war on crime, the war on drugs. And now it's hip hop, right? Drill music and this city girl and overt hypersexual culture. There's always something there to throw us off when we're climbing up. I will never forget what Azealia Banks said back in 2018. She said in 2016, we're having all these intelligent dialogues about Black wealth, Jay-Z's 444, about generational curses that a lot of Black women fall under, Beyonce's Lemonade, and about mental and emotional wellness, Solange's A Seat at the Table. But then the following year, a Hispanic Black adjacent girl from the city, New York City, the Bronx, New York, the mecca of hip hop, she kicks the door down. As a culture, most of us embrace her, myself included, me, Aaliyah Queen Lovely. And we're excited to see, oh, you don't have to be prim, proper, and perfect to make it into these assumed upper echelon spaces and places. You can just be yourself. But then after Cardi B, the City Girls came along. And jump ahead so we could get back on topic. Now we got Sukiana and Sexy Red. So every time there's some upward mobility with us, whether it's externally and materially, or whether it's on a mental, emotional, spiritual. Because I also think about the Rainbow Coalition, the Black Panthers. I think about when it was let's just be love and peace and all of that, and then those Manson murders started. It's always something there to run interference. Because imagine if not all of us, because that's not realistic, but most of us, enough of us can get on the same page. And that page is a frequency that is vibrating on positivity. Those that be, they don't want that and they can't have that. So we think about all of that as it pertains to we the people are under this spell of white supremacy that always seeks to break Black people down. And then we as Black people, we fall in love. We start families. We have kids. And it's not until we start to see the breakdown in emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, mental intelligence, the breakdown in inability to be a true unconditional authority. When we start to see that by way of how our kids are out in the world showing up, it's very hard to then turn the mirror back on ourselves and say, you know what? I dropped the ball. I dropped the ball. And it's not too late for me to run into the game and help my child out so that they can make better decisions. Most people just don't have that wherewithal with them. They just don't. Because most of us are afraid of being wrong and being incorrect. That reward punishment system that has been indoctrinated into our psyche. So it goes really, really deep, way beyond TI, way beyond Tiny, way beyond any black family dynamic. It starts with an individual, and that's why people always say, as cliche and 1, 2, 3 ABC as it may sound, if you want to see changes in the world, you really have to start with yourself, because you can't control people and you can't control situations. All you can do is be aware and accountable of how you're showing up and do your best to create an energetic stratosphere that not only attracts people on the opposite end of the spectrum, but people that are making their way or already are on that end of the spectrum that you're on. So it's a lot. It's a lot. There's so many ways we can go with this conversation, but for him to feel like he's a mistake, for him to say things like, stop acting like you F with me when you don't, and then to find out that he was at his grandma's, and then Zonnique has a very similar story. She says she never seen her parents. Her mom always had to be with T.I., and T.I. always had to be with her, and they were busy and she never seen them. And she was always at her grandmother's house, and she was always outside because her grandma would let her do what she do. It's emotional neglect. It's not intentional, because we're all doing the best that we can, and we're all working with what we have and what we know how to apply. Because it's one thing to have an epiphany, it's one thing to gather knowledge, but there's a lot of work that has to be done with intention for you to apply it, for you to learn discernment of when, where, and how to apply that knowledge. Most people won't do it. Most people can't do it. It just is what it is. I hope that they go to family therapy. Honestly, y'all want to get back on TV, I say go grab Beyonla, let her do one of those series where she rents a house for a month or something, and y'all all sit up in there and talk. But the interesting thing is, I remember when that situation happened where I think it was Deyjah Harris and T.I. was talking about checking her hymen and being all extreme about, that hyper masculine BS where it's like the boys can run around and you want them to start engaging in sexual activities as early as possible, because that takes some sweat off your forehead that your son is not a same-sex lover. But with the women, because you know that they're heteronormative and they're going to be with heteronormative men like you, and you know how y'all are socialized, you want to try to have dominion on when that girl opens and closes her legs, and then you announced it to the world. And see, maybe I'll leave some of my other commentary for Patreon, but I still think about all of those allegations that came out against T.I. and Tiny. And I think about the allegation that came out against Candy and they've been best friends forever. Okay. And I'm not saying that the allegations were true. I am not saying that there's connections with those allegations and what's going on in the family. I am just saying T.I. and Tiny have made choices and mistakes, as we all do, myself included. And I think anybody who just tries to brush this under the table as, oh, he's just a spoiled brat, or he shouldn't be talking to his parents like that, I'm just offering more context to where that behavior comes from. That's another thing that I really want us as the Black community to progress beyond. Everything doesn't have to be the minute somebody provides context for someone's behavior, that's not an excuse. An excuse and an explanation is not the same thing. An excuse is, okay, I know that's wrong, but she's excused because insert the excuse. An explanation is, she's wrong. She needs to be held accountable, but let me give you some context on why she did that. So when you're holding this person accountable, you can take all of that into consideration, and the way that you proceed with the repercussions, it can match what the person can handle. It don't make no sense to punish someone or condemn someone. And this is something I'm actively learning. I'm in the very early stages of learning it. It don't make sense to punish or condemn someone who doesn't even have the internal foundation to receive it and apply it. You're just talking at that point. And again, we're socialized this way. So I get it. I have compassion for myself. So therefore I have compassion for those that participate in it. But there's something much deeper going on, because 3 of the kids, Deyjah, Zonnique, and King Harris, have displayed and or expressed, whether it was verbally or through way of how they show up, the neglect. I mean, another thing is, let me see if I can find, let me see. I don't know if y'all gonna be able to hear it though. But I remember I did a video. Remember this video I did where we had a conversation and Tiny says Zonnique is following in her footsteps by having a child before marriage, because a lot of people were saying, why is Zonnique, what happened was Zonnique had basically said she feels like marriage is more of a commitment than a baby. The internet piled up on her. Okay, whatever. Then the next thing was, Tiny came out to defend her daughter. She was in an interview, and Tiny was basically like, listen, she's following in my steps. I was the 3rd baby mother, but I was also the first and only wife. The first and only wife that got cheated on excessively to the point where you joined in. And then I remember that situation with T.I. and Bernice Burgos where they left you in the dust and they went and had fun without you. So people have a right to do what they want in their marriage. But if you're going to come out and share things, I'm just going to point out the truth. I'm just going to point out the truth. So to hear later on down the line, because I forgot when this was. Let me see when this was. 2 years ago. So yeah, December 9th, 2020, almost 3 years ago. So to see 3 years later, the kids are becoming more vocal, and Zonnique is saying things like, my parents were never around. This is a emotional, mental, and spiritual, generational, traumatic behavioral pattern that is being repeated. Your kids may have grew up differently and got to see and be in certain spaces and places and have certain opportunities because of what you and T.I. have been able to build. Again, the Black community, we have to do better with teaching our children and teaching ourselves mental, emotional, and spiritual upward mobility. It has been like this from the beginning of times. You go back to slavery. There were slaves in Africa. It was not chattel slavery the way it was in America. And what did the kings do? They were trading our ancestors for guns and alcohol. So it's deep. This is something that's in our blood, where we are easily like, everything that glitters is not gold, but we have to learn that lesson so many times over and we still haven't gotten it. So I just really wish them the best of luck. I hope that they're able to take a step back behind closed doors. I feel like Tiny may have the wherewithal, but I don't think T.I. will, because Deyjah said every time she tries to talk to T.I., he makes himself the victim. That sounds like a narcissist to me, but whatever. So y'all let me know what y'all think below. I'll be back with another video, and y'all have a great day. Be sure to hit the thumbs up. Thank you for watching, and make sure you check out my Patreon. Bye.